Everybody in this market is wondering, when are we going to turn around? When will this bear market stop? And I think this chart over here might be a pretty good answer. What we see in this chart is how much we have drawn down in prior bear markets from the all-time high. So we had the drawdown in the very early days in 2011 of 93%. Then came the subsequent bull run, then came the next drawdown. This one was rather after Mt. Gox and after Terra Luna. So we draw down by 85%, subsequently the ICO bubble bust 83% and another drawdown by 76%. So you can see that from one bear market to the next, it seems like we tend to decline slightly less. Currently, we are nowhere near a potential bear market bottom. When we actually align those bottoms with this potential support, we can see how bad it could potentially be. So a drop from the all-time high of roughly 70%. How much is this? Let's have a calculation. So the all-time high was at roughly 125K, 126K. A 70% drop from that brings us down to 37K. So that's the potential risk. That's the potential bear market bottom if everything stays the way it is. And what I mean by this is we do not really know what's going to happen with traditional finance, right? We don't know if valuations of AI stocks will stay where they are. We do know that AI stocks and crypto tend to move in similar directions at the same time. So if suddenly we were to see valuations of traditional finance drop massively, then even comparisons to prior bear markets might not hold up. And then even lines like the one we've just drawn over here might be too optimistic. Now, another reason why I think that we're probably not yet out of this bear market is this chart here. This is the Bitcoin market drawdown in percent in the price in red, but what we have in blue, that's the realized cap drawdown. So this gives us an idea how much people are realizing their losses during a bear market. When the realized market cap is going down, people have realized losses. And in prior bear markets, they realized quite a bit of losses. So far, we have only slightly started. So the market hasn't really given up. There are some people that take profit, but there's also many people that have bought high that haven't yet sold. And so again, in prior bear markets, we tended to see much more panic. Why do I think that we have already entered a bear market and that this is not a bull market anymore? That is not just a correction within a bull market that has started when we entered at the 16K mark. The reason why I think so is, have a look at the percent supply in profit. It tends to go down as we're selling off into the bear market, obviously. What I found interesting with this current drawdown is that this time there's much more supply in losses compared to prior similar drawdowns when the price didn't go down that much. So what I mean here is more people tend to be holding through that price decline. In the past, people sold earlier, meaning that the supply in profit tended to go down less quickly. This time it's going down faster because people simply continue holding. I find this fascinating. Check this out. This is Bitcoin plus Ethereum plus Solana's market cap. And that market cap, so of the three major cryptocurrencies, relative to all these smaller cryptocurrencies. So that's the market cap of others, the market cap of the altcoins that are not in the top 10. We have seen over the last 3 to 4 years how the bigger altcoins tended to outperform the smaller altcoins, at least in terms of market cap. We have also seen that with the recent crypto crash, the smaller altcoins held up comparatively well. Now, how much longer could this last? I think potentially until we hit the support. So the smaller altcoins might still outperform by another 20%, or the bigger altcoins might underperform by another 20% over the next few days, maybe weeks. That's at least my quote-unquote worst case scenario for our relative valuation trades. So we want to bet on falling prices of altcoins most of the time because they are inflating. We want to bet on rising prices of the altcoins that tend to have less token dilution. But in the very short term, this approach might be somewhat problematic, right? We might want to reduce our risk to a degree because, yeah, we are currently in negative momentum and we are still quite far away from the potential support. The long-term holders of Bitcoin are currently not the cause for this crash, and I find this quite fascinating. Usually, we might consider that maybe it's just the very OGs, the people that bought Bitcoin for just a few dollars that are currently dumping on the market because the momentum is negative. And while the long-term holders did sell into the rally when we hit new all-time highs, they did sell quite a bit. Recently, they're not selling as actively. So it seems like it's mainly short-term holders that are currently selling. This value days destroyed metric, it measures what the dormant Bitcoin is doing. So the Bitcoin that hasn't moved for several years, the Bitcoin that is in the big wallets, right? So if you've got 100 Bitcoin and you haven't moved those 100 Bitcoin for 10 years, and then after 10 years you decide to move those 100 Bitcoin, you are destroying 1000 value years, and that will spike up this metric. If you have less Bitcoin, or if your Bitcoin in general is moving more often, then this metric is not spiking up when you do transfers. So when this metric is going up, this is a direct reflection of people that usually do not touch their Bitcoin, that they suddenly do touch their Bitcoin, that they suddenly do move their Bitcoin. And very often, when Bitcoin has been dormant for a long time, it suddenly gets reactivated. That's selling pressure, right? People don't just move their Bitcoin for no reason. They move their Bitcoin after many years in order to sell it. And so when this is not going up recently, but the price is going down, that means that at least the current pressure that we see on the Bitcoin price is not due to the whales that have bought Bitcoin in the early days suddenly selling off. This sell-off is due to something else. And I find this always interesting to figure out what's going on, right? Because we can also see why Bitcoin didn't appreciate as quickly compared to prior bull markets. It was because the long-term holders sold off more aggressively during this bull market compared to prior bull markets. This is the stablecoin market cap relative to the monetary base, and this is not expanding since October of last year. And we talked about this all the time on this channel. I've talked about this in the premium update videos regularly. And once we started to expand, that's when I turned macro bearish. Since October of 2023, we tended to expand. So that's when the bull market started. We shorted the altcoins up until then. We stopped shorting without hedge in October of 2023. But yeah, just have a look at this, right? Since the stablecoins aren't expanding anymore, there's no more inflows into the ecosystem relative to the monetary base. That's exactly when Bitcoin started crashing. So that's the power of looking at data. That's why I like the crypto market so much. When money is flowing into the market, prices go up, and we actually know whether or not we should buy dips. Right? We can buy dips when money continues to flow in, but when we are dipping and no money is coming in, things are a bit more problematic. And I like these kind of data points that we do not have in any other asset class. We might have it to a degree in property. Some people make analysis. In traditional finance, we are far behind because the banks and various players have much more information than we do. So as retail investors, we are far behind. But crypto is a bit more of a fair market, as in everybody has the same kind of data, or everybody can try to get the same kind of data. And so if you put in the time, you will find things like this. And if there's no money flowing into the space, what should push prices up? That's the big question. This clip is coming to an end, but the entire episode is available over here. Just click here. Looking very much forward to seeing you on the other side. Cheers.